The Ferris wheel lights spun behind him. It was late summer, 1976, at the Tupelo County Fair. Mid-song, Elvis froze. Near the front, a small boy stood alone, tears streaking his dusty cheeks. "Somebody's missing their mama," Elvis said, softly into the mic. If you've ever seen a moment of kindness stop a crowd cold, you know what's coming. Stay with me, this is one small town story. Tupelo has never stopped telling. The high note hung in the air, but Elvis didn't finish it. His gaze had locked on something at stage left, something the rest of the band hadn't noticed yet. It was early evening in late summer, 1976. The Tupelo County Fair was alive with the sugar-sweet smell of cotton candy and the greasy smoke of funnel cakes drifting from the midway. The Ferris wheel spun slowly in the distance, throwing, shifting, bands of blue, red, and gold across the dusty fairground. Folding chairs stretched in tight rows before the temporary stage, every seat full on stage. Elvis stood under a wash of yellow light, his white jumpsuit catching it in a blinding flash every time he turned. Gold trim glinted at his cuffs. The Jordanaires swayed behind him, voices blending. The band's beat was steady, until Elvis took one slow step toward the edge. His eyes narrowed. Down in the dirt, a boy maybe 6 or 7 years old stood barefoot, his hair matted with sweat. In his hands, a piece of cardboard bent from being clutched too tightly. The child's lip trembled. He didn't move toward the stage, didn't call out. Just stood there under the edge of the spotlight's spill, blinking against the brightness. The music kept going, another 2 bars before Elvis raised one hand. The band faltered, confused. He stepped to the very front of the stage, one boot heel hanging over the plywood edge. "Elvis," softly into mic, "what's your name, son?" The boy answered, but the words didn't reach the mic. A faint murmur rippled through the crowd. Some thought it was part of the act. Elvis always had a way of pulling someone from the audience for a moment of fun. But this felt different. A warm breeze carried the smell of fried peanuts across the stage. Somewhere behind the crowd, a ride operator's bell dinged, muffled by the sudden hush. Elvis crouched, resting one knee on the stage floor. His face softened. He tilted his head toward the boy again, but the child only looked down. The cardboard shifted just enough for the front row to read the shaky, oversized letters. Not everyone saw it yet, but Elvis did. His jaw tightened, and he nodded once, like he'd made up his mind. Whatever was on that cardboard, it wasn't a request for a song. Elvis glanced back at the band, lifted his hand again, and this time made a cutting motion. The music stopped cold. 4,000 people went silent. In that moment, with the Ferris wheel still spinning in the background and the night air pressing in, every eye turned to the boy and to Elvis, who was already stepping down from the stage. Elvis hit the ground in one smooth step, the boards of the stage creaking as he dropped from the platform. Security tensed. 2 men in jackets shifted forward, but he waved them off without looking back. The dirt was warm from the day's sun, though the air was cooling fast. A faint hum from the midway lights mixed with the muted roar of rides. Above them, moths flickered in and out of the beams from the stage rig. The boy clutched the cardboard tighter, his knuckles pale. Elvis was close enough now to read the words, in shaky blocked letters, "Looking for Mum." Elvis crouched, resting one hand on his bent knee, and lowered his voice. "Elvis, where'd you last see her, buddy?" The boy's answer was barely a whisper. Witnesses recall that his cheeks were streaked with a mix of tears and fairground dust, his hair damp and curling at the edges, Some would say later that Elvis's expression changed in that moment. From performer to protector, he extended his hand palm up. The boy hesitated, then slid his small hand into Elvis's. It disappeared into the singer's grip. From the stage, the amp still gave off a soft hiss. Somewhere near the food stands, a vendor shouted, "Funnel cakes." The normal rhythm of the fair now jarringly out of place. Elvis straightened, keeping the boy close to his side. He scanned the crowd, eyes searching. Then he looked toward the sound booth and gave a small nod. The fair announcer's voice crackled over the loudspeakers. "Attention, please. If there's a Mrs. Taylor here, please come to the stage area. Your son is safe." The boy's grip tightened. He swallowed hard but didn't smile. People in the folding chairs twisted in their seats, looking for someone to stand. Murmurs rippled outward. Parents instinctively pulled their own children a little closer. And then, from the left aisle, a woman started forward, smiling in recognition. Narration, but the woman who appeared from the crowd wasn't his mother. She was moving fast, arms outstretched, already calling a name. But the boy took a half step back. Elvis's arm tightened slightly, holding the child in place. The woman slowed, confusion flashing across her face. "Woman. Oh, I thought." She explained quickly that she believed it was her nephew, lost earlier in the day. But a closer look proved her wrong. The boy's shoulders slumped. He glanced at the ground. The cardboard drooped in his hand. Elvis crouched again, speaking to him in a tone no one else could quite hear. Whatever he said, it was enough to keep the boy calm. The midway lights glowed brighter against the deepening blue of the sky. Music from another ride bled faintly into the stillness near the stage. And somewhere in the crowd, the real mother, still searching, had no idea her son was now standing beside the most famous man in America. Elvis didn't let go. The boy's small hands stayed locked in his as they turned slowly back toward the stage. The crowd leaned forward, every head tracking their movement. The air was thicker now, cooled by nightfall but charged with something else, a collective unease. The smell of popcorn mixed with the metallic temps from the stage equipment. Stage lights sent a halo of dust motes drifting through the beam. Elvis raised his chin toward the audience. "Elvis, let's make sure he gets home safe." The words weren't dramatic, but the tone, steady, low, carried the weight of a command. People shifted in their seats. A few stood to scan the crowd. From the far edge, a man in a cowboy hat lifted his hands, shading his eyes as if searching for someone. A woman clutched her purse to her chest. Whispering to her neighbor, fair security moved in from both sides, eyes sweeping, radios crackling. The woman who'd mistaken the boy for her nephew stepped back into the shadows, embarrassed. The boy pressed against Elvis's leg now, his head tucked in toward the singer's hip. According to fair workers who saw it from the wings, Elvis leaned down and began humming, just a few soft bars of "Love Me Tender." He didn't touch the mic. The melody was for the boy alone. The child's shoulders eased just slightly. Later, someone in the front row would say that was the moment the whole place changed, when 4,000 people realized they were part of something bigger than a concert. In the front rows, people stopped fidgeting with programs and drinks. Conversations dropped to whispers. Even the midway, 100 yards away, seemed quieter rides still turning, but without the same noise cutting through. The announcer's voice came back, firmer now. "Mrs. Taylor, please come to the stage area immediately." The boy's head lifted at the name. Elvis caught the movement. His eyes narrowed slightly, scanning the faces beyond the lights. A second passed, then another. The silence was heavy enough to feel. From deep in the crowd, faint at first, came a voice urgent, breaking over the noise. Woman's voice, Eddie. The boy froze. His hand tightened in Elvis's. His eyes darted toward the sound, as if afraid to believe it. Elvis turned his head slowly, gaze following the same line as the boy's. The crowd parted slightly, people twisting to look toward the aisle, and there, at the far end, moving fast through the rows, was a woman in a red sundress, her eyes locked on the boy. The woman's sandals slapped against the dirt as she weaved through the rows, her red sundress flaring with each step. The boy's head snapped toward her, his eyes wide, breath catching. "Boy, Mama." He broke from Elvis's side, running, full tilt. Elvis followed, staying close enough to catch him if he stumbled. The smell of hay and sugar spun in the air as the two closed the gap. The woman dropped to her knees before he reached her. Her arms opened wide, and the boy collided into them with a soft thud, burying his face against her shoulder. Applause rippled from the front rows, spreading back like a wave. A few people stood, clapping over their heads. In the stage lights, faces shone with relief. Others just smiled, holding their own children a little closer. She kissed the top of his head, again and again, whispering something too low for anyone else to hear. Her hands stayed on him like she might never let go. Elvis stopped a few steps away, letting them have their moment. He wiped a small streak of dust from his knee where he'd crouched earlier. When the woman finally looked up, her eyes were still. Glassy Elvis stepped forward, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Elvis, you've got a fine boy." Her voice shook. "Mother, thank you so much." Witnesses say Elvis reached up, unlooped a white and gold scarf from his neck, and offered it to the boy. The child hesitated, then took it, holding it like it was the most important thing in the world. The applause swelled again, longer this time. Some people whistled, others just kept clapping, unwilling to break the moment. Stage lights painted the dust in golden swirls. Somewhere far off, the Ferris wheel creaked, still turning slow. Elvis looked over his shoulder toward the band, gave a small nod, then leaned in toward the mic. "Elvis, all right, folks. Let's give M a minute." He backed away, letting the mother and son fade into the crowd's embrace. But just before stepping onto the stage, he leaned toward the fair manager and whispered something. The manager nodded once, glancing toward the backstage area. No one in the audience knew it then, but whatever Elvis said in that quick exchange would turn this simple act of kindness into a story the town would tell for decades. 7 days after the fair, a cardboard box sat on the front porch of the Taylor home. No return address, just the name Eddie written in neat black letters. It was a warm afternoon. Cicadas buzzed from the trees, and the faint smell of cut grass drifted through the screen door. Eddie's mother found the box when she stepped outside to shake out a rug. She knelt, running her fingers along the tape before calling into the house. "Mother Eddie, something's here for you." The boy came to the door, the white and gold scarf from that night still looped around his neck. He crouched beside her as she tore the tape away. Inside, cushioned by brown packing paper, was a small acoustic guitar, light enough for a child to hold. Its finish gleamed honey gold in the sunlight. Across the strings, tucked just under the bridge, was a folded piece of stationery. Eddie unfolded it carefully. In the same unmistakable hand that signed thousands of autographs, it read, "Eddie, you'll always have a front row seat. Elvis." His mother pressed her lips together, holding back tears. "Mother, you're never forgetting this one, baby." She would be right, but at the time, Eddie was more interested in strumming than thinking about the future. By that evening, the story was in motion. She called a neighbor to share the news, who told her sister, who told the local paper. A week later, the piece ran on the front page of the Tupelo Daily Journal. At church that Sunday, the pastor worked the story into his sermon about kindness. Kids at school asked Eddie to bring the guitar for show and tell. Eddie's fingers were too small for proper chords, but he managed a rough three-note pattern. The sound was thin, but to him, it was music, a piece of that night he could hold in his hands. Neighbors said they'd hear him on the porch most evenings, scarf still around his neck, guitar resting on his knee until the sun went down. The scarf frayed over the years. The guitar's finish picked up small scratches, but neither left the family home. Decades later, Eddie pulled the guitar down from above the mantel for the first time in years. His own son was getting married. At the reception, in a small hall just a few miles from the old fairground site, Eddie sat on a stool and played the same 3 chords he'd learned as a boy. The guests didn't know the whole story, but his son did, and in that moment, with the gold scarf still tucked in the guitar case, the kindness of one night in 1976 became something larger than any concert. The fairground is gone now, replaced by a strip of asphalt and painted parking lines. But for people in Tupelo, you can still stand there and feel it. The night Elvis stopped everything. Summer air still hums with cicadas in August. The smell of fried dough drifts from the county fair, now held in a different part of town. And in quiet moments, old-timers swear they can hear the echo of a band falling silent mid-song. The story of that night didn't fade. It's been told in church basements, passed down at kitchen tables, and folded into high school history projects. Some locals say you can't live here more than a year without someone telling you about the time Elvis found the lost boy. At the diner on Main Street, there's a laminated clipping from the Tupelo Daily Journal hanging near the register. The photo shows Elvis kneeling near the edge of the stage, head tilted toward a small figure holding a cardboard sign. If you look close, you can see the scarf around his neck, the same one Eddie keeps in the guitar case to this day. Eddie grew up here. He played ball, graduated, worked a steady job, but the guitar stayed. It followed him from his mother's house to his own. Over the years, it became less an instrument and more a reminder of a night when 4,000 people put everything on pause for one boy, and maybe, as some folks like to say, that's the real reason the story lasted. Because it wasn't just about Elvis. It was about a crowd that didn't rush the music to start again. About a fairground where strangers searched the aisles instead of heading for the rides. About a mother whose relief was cheered like the final note of a song. An usher who worked that night once told a reporter, "It was like the whole place took a breath and didn't let it go until she had him in her arms." Now, when Eddie stands in that parking lot, he can point to where the stage would have been, where the folding chairs lined up, where the Ferris wheel threw its colored light. There's nothing there now, no rides, no music. But in his mind, it's still 1976. The air is warm, the lights are bright, and Elvis is stepping down from the stage, one hand outstretched. The guitar still comes out for family milestones, birthdays, holidays, and of course, that wedding. The scarf, still there, still gold at the edges. Faded, but whole. The king didn't just stop a concert that night. He stopped time, and in doing so, He gave a boy and a town a story that's been keeping the lights on in their hearts for nearly 50 years. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes one small act of kindness can echo for a lifetime. And tell me, what's the kindest thing you've ever seen happen in public?